Good morning, Year 4. How are you? Welcome to today's English session. Today you're going to be thinking about how to use apostrophes for possession. To be successful in this lesson, you will be able to identify where possessive apostrophes should be used. You'll be able to use the possessive apostrophe in your own writing, and you will be able to indicate this possession by using the possessive apostrophe, including the plural possessive apostrophe too. Now, thinking about what an apostrophe is the same shape as a comma, so you can see on my screen here, but instead it's placed above the line. Now, apostrophes can show two things. They can show possession, that something belongs to another thing, or that some letters of a word have been left out to join words together. So words such as do not, joining together to make the word don't, because that has an apostrophe, doesn't it? And in this lesson today, we're going to be exploring the first use of apostrophes, so apostrophes for possession. And there are two types of apostrophes. There are plural, using just the S, and possessive apostrophes where you actually use apostrophe S. Now, using these two images on the screen here, can you think of what they are? So what noun is this picture representing? And would we use the plural S or possessive apostrophe S to describe these two objects? Pause the video and have a think. How did you get on? Did you recognise that they are both trees, but the first example is trees with just the plural S because there are two of them. And the second example is actually zooming into the tree's trunk. And this is where it has the possessive apostrophe S because the trunk belongs to the tree. The tree has possession and owns the trunk. So we need to make sure we have that apostrophe S there to show that possession. Whereas the plural is just showing that there are two trees. And we're going to really think about the possessive apostrophes today more than the plural over here. But just briefly discussing the plural, we know from our English lessons last week that a noun names a person, like Miss Newman, a place, school, an idea, a thing, or feeling. So we can have the word logger. Logger is someone who cuts down trees. We can have the word parakeet. A parakeet is a bird. Acre, there is an acre of land surrounding these trees. Fear, these are all nouns. But if there is more than one of the noun, like with the trees, there were two trees, we say it's plural. So we use that S on the end, but we don't need an apostrophe. So we can have the loggers, the parakeets, the acres, the fears. They all have an extra S because there is more than one. Here we have 20 loggers, but if there's just one, there's no S. Now, looking at the possessive S, we show this to show possession. So again, we'll take the examples of the logger, the parakeet, and this time we're going to think about the forest and a grandfather. Now, possession means that something is owned by the noun. So these are the nouns, and they all own something. I wonder what they might own. Let's have a think. Well, the logger owns some boots, so they become the logger's boots. And you can see here, because the noun, the logger, owns the boots, we have to add the apostrophe S to show possession. But you can see here in the picture that it's just one logger. There's not any more than one logger, so it's just the one logger's boots. Similarly, we could say the parakeet's feathers were deep green because these feathers belong to the parakeets. There's not any more than one parakeet, there's just one, so we do the apostrophe S. Have a think about what the forest might have. What might the forest have possession over? Maybe. The forest might have possession over the trees because the trees belong in the forest. So we could say the forest's trees were under threat, that apostrophe S showing that possession. And finally, we could say the grandfather's eyes were angry. The eyes are owned by the grandfathers, so they are angry. Can you think of a noun? So anything, it might be something in the room, it might be something else, it might be something outside. Can you think of a noun and then think about what that noun owns? For example, I am sat on a table. Well, I'm sat on a chair, but the table is in front of me. The table might be my noun, and I might say the table's legs. So the table's legs. The legs belong to the table because they are part of it. And then say something else about it. I'm going to give you a moment to pause the video now. Have a go at that, please. Off you go. Okay, how did you do? So now we're going to think about the plural S and the possessive S before we look at the possessive S in a bit more detail. So I've got these 4 sentences and I want you to state which sentence is correct in each pair. So you've got 6 trees were chopped down, or 6 trees were chopped down. Remembering, is this sentence showing that there is more than one tree to be a plural S, or is it showing that something belongs to the tree? And the second example here, the tree's branches were stripped, or the tree's branches were stripped. Is it showing multiple trees, or is it showing possessive trees? So something is owned by the tree. Pause the video now and have a think which of these sentences is correct, which is plural, and which is possessive. Pause the video, have a think. Okay, how did you do? So we know that the plural adds the S. In the first sentence here, 6 trees were chopped down. The trees represent that there is more than one, which is why we have the plural S with no apostrophe. Whereas a second example here suggests that the trees own something, but in this sentence they don't own anything. Whereas a second example, statement 1, the tree's branches were stripped. But that's suggesting that there's more than one tree, but it's only one tree that has its branches stripped. But the second example is suggesting that the branches belonged to the tree. So that is correct, because the tree's branches, they belong to them. Now we're going to think about apostrophes for possession, because today's focus is all about the apostrophe for possession. We need to understand the difference between singular possessive apostrophes and plural possessive apostrophes. So when we have a singular, when we show possession, we add apostrophe S to a noun. We've just learned that. But the thing is, we can look at these nouns. We've got tree, villager, spider, and macaw. So if we want to say the tree's branches, the villager's home, the spider's fangs, the macaw's anger, this is only one tree, one villager, one spider, one macaw. And this is a singular possessive apostrophe because there is just one. But sometimes the noun might include more than one trees. So it might be the tree's branches. There might be 3 trees and they own the branches. And if that happens, that's called a plural possessive. So if the noun already ends in S, such as trees, villagers, spiders, macaws, and it's still owning something, we have to add just an apostrophe after the S, okay? Now that might sound a bit confusing, but we're going to look at some examples. So we've got the tree's branches. So that suggests there could be 1, 2, 3 trees, and they all own the branches. But if there's just one tree and we're talking about the tree's branches, what does that mean then? That's right, that is just a singular possessive apostrophe. So it would look like apostrophe S. This time with villagers, there is more than one villager. What might they own? They might have anger, so they might feel anger. They still own that anger. It's an emotion, they have possession over it. The villagers' anger, there's more than one of them. There might be 3 or 4 or even 10 or 50. Spiders then, the spiders' webs. We might say the spiders' webs because they might have multiple spiders who have webs. But if it's just one spider, then it would be apostrophe S, and that would be our singular possessive. And finally, the macaw's gathering. So we can see here that there's more than one macaw. They're having a gathering. That gathering belongs to them, so it's a possessive. And we can see here that for all of these nouns, because they all end in S, because there are multiple, more than one, that they have to have just an apostrophe at the end of that noun. So that's a really important thing to remember. So our main focus of today has been the possessive apostrophe, looking at singular possessive and plural possessive. Remind me, what's singular possessive? That's right, singular possessive is where there's just one noun and they own something. So the tree's branch, there's just one tree. Or plural possessive would be what? That's it, if there's more than one of the noun and they own something. So if they had the tree's branches again, but maybe there were 3 trees in the row that all had branches and they all owned them. Okay, I would like you to have a go at matching the following punctuation to the description. So I've got them on the board here for you. And I've got some sentences. So I've got the villager's house shook when the trees fell. The villager's house shook when the trees fell. Both of these villagers are my noun. One of them is identifying a singular possessive apostrophe. The other one is a plural possessive apostrophe. Can you find out which sentence matches them? Does it belong to one villager? All the villagers, which is which? And then do the same for the monkey sat on the trees branches or the monkey sat on the trees branches. Have a think, which sentence does it match to? You've got this slide on your resource pack, so can you please pause the video here and have a go if you can match them to the correct sentences. Pause the video, have a go. Okay, so I can see the first sentence is the hut which belonged to one villager shook, and I can see that one villager is always apostrophe S, which means that the hut which belonged to all of the villagers is this one here, because when it's a plural possessive, we're talking about more than one of the noun. For the second example, the monkey sat on the tree's branches. That means that the branches which belonged to one tree had the monkey sitting on them, and the monkey sat on the tree's branches. We know that because the apostrophe is after the noun, that is several trees had monkeys sitting on them. Well done. So your task today, you've got 3 tasks. The first one is to read the sentences, circle the apostrophe like I have done here, and then identify whether it's singular or plural. So here I've got my sentences, I've spotted my apostrophe, it's here, and then I'm thinking, oh, well, because it's apostrophe S, that means it's just one monkey, so it's a singular possessive apostrophe. If it had the apostrophe after the S, that would mean multiple monkeys, so that would be a plural. Then you've got to have a go at editing. So you've got to read sentences 1, 2, 3, and 4. Figure out what noun needs the apostrophe for possession. Thinking about the fact that the noun must end in S. So which noun ends in S? So is it going to be just, for example, waters? Is it going to be the water's edge? Is it just one water or lots of water? Okay, and then keep reading that. And then you've got to pick one noun from each of these lists. So you might pick rainforest for one of your sentences, and you might pick branches for one of your sentences. You've got to then put that into a sentence using a possessive apostrophe. You can choose whether you use a singular or plural possessive, okay? So you've got trees, and I've given you the example here with bees. The bee's friends live in the rainforest. And because there's just one bee and his friends, and it belongs to him, it's a singular, so it's apostrophe S. I hope that makes sense. Now, I just want to have a quick plenary with you. Which sentences use the apostrophe correctly? Pause the video and have a think. Okay, how did you do? Oh, there's an extra one. Pause it again. How did you do? So, the answer for question number 1 is the second one has used it correctly, because the elders, there's only one of them, so it should be apostrophe S. This one here, there's lots of monkeys because it says the many monkeys' tails, so that's used correctly. But it's just some loggers, but nothing belongs to the logger because it says have after that. And then same here, that nothing belongs to the tourist, so there actually isn't any need for the apostrophe. Have a lovely rest of your day, Year 4. I'm really excited to see your lovely learning. Bye!